welcome, dear viewers. We have here in our studio Getachew Reda, advisor to the president and spokesperson of Tigray's Central Command. Getachew, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So just bring us up to speed with the latest developments. What is on the ground? What's the current state of affairs regarding the ongoing war on Tigray?
Well, since the leadership decided to evacuate Maqala, probably over a week ago, to avoid wanton destruction of property and civilian life, which enemy forces had been targeting before that. We've been mounting a relentless defense against enemies' attempts to break into our defensive lines. And so there has been intense fighting in the outskirts of Maqala and in other parts of Tigray, mostly spearheaded by Isaias Afwerki's forces, who obviously are not content with the occupation of Maqala, the physical occupation of Maqala. They are more interested in making sure that the honor, values and self-determination rights of the people of Tigray are absolutely erased. In fact, Isaias had long been on record vowing that he would do everything within his power to make sure that whatever legacies of TPLF or Tigray are erased out of the pages of history. Now that now that the official declaration of war officially declared was launched about a month ago, our forces have been inflicting heavy damage on enemy forces, and obviously Isaias has deployed more than 60–70% of his army, his infantry and mechanized divisions in Tigray. Abiy has moved all but probably half of his Republican Guard, because the other half has also been deployed in Tigray, into Tigray. So what we see is an all-out onslaught on Tigray, and there is no let-up in that campaign. The last couple of days have seen a spike in that offensive by Abiy, and our forces have been gallantly defending against their encroachment. And yesterday, apart from inflicting heavy damage on Isaias' forces, especially in the Al-Asa front, which is in the outskirts of Maqala, and in the Garab Sagan and Debre front, another outskirt of Maqala, another area in the outskirts of Maqala, we have been able to neutralize a very significant amount of enemy forces. We have destroyed their tanks, we have captured some of them, destroyed heavy artillery pieces. For us, the defense that we've been mounting has been very successful, but despite heavy casualties, enemy forces still don't see any reason why they should consider their moves, but will continue to do so. So what we have on the ground right now is a frantic effort on the part of Isaias' forces and his junior partner Abiy to ratchet up their campaign against Tigray. But we're defending.
What does Maqala signify? Is it the conclusion of the war, as Abiy and Isaias claim after entering Maqala?
No, far from that. Well, the decision to evacuate Maqala was an intentional decision on our part. The pattern was very obvious. The writing on the wall for us. Isaias and Abiy were not particularly interested in. Well, Abiy was interested in entering Mekelle. That would, in and of itself, would humiliate TPLF and the leadership. That probably was one of the reasons why he was making all sorts of promises every other day that the deadline is over and all that. That was a bit childish, I guess, but it's no laughing matter. It came at the cost of tens of thousands of Ethiopian soldiers and, of course, Eritrea's youth. But the pattern was clear that they were not particularly interested in ensuring victory in every battle. They were also interested, equally, if not more interested, in destroying whatever gains Tigray had made economically, socially, and politically in the last 20-something years. So for Isaias, it was about settling an old score. For Abiy as a junior partner, it was about probably getting even with TPLF. But the fact that they were joined in the hip when it comes to setting the clock back on Tigray's development, was politically, economically, and politically, simply meant they would do everything within their power. They would deploy every army imaginable, even if the cost is as staggering as it has been in the past. So what they were focusing on was wanton destruction of cities, blanket bombardment of towns, dismantling of factories. In fact, a scorched earth plan that involved the destruction of crops of helpless peasants. So when the fighting was getting closer to Tigray, they were more interested in the paved roads between cities. They were indiscriminately bombarding cities. So what we decided was there was little, if any, military significance for us to hold out in Mekelle, but would give them an extra excuse to bombard the city. So as far as military significance goes, would move out of Mekelle. In fact, the Debretsion made it a point to bring together community elders, representative of the investment community and all that, and he made it clear to them that the government of Tigray didn't intend to fight it out in Mekelle, because there were better alternatives to protect the interest of Mekelle than fighting it out in Mekelle. So we made a conscious decision to strategically withdraw from Mekelle. So it was not a culmination of the war. Far from that. In fact, despite a premature announcement by Abiy, as Yogi Bira is said to have remarked, it ain't over before it's over, or until it's over. It's not over, it will not be over, because the moment they decide Tigray has been erased out of the map, the political map of Ethiopia, they will have declared it over. Until such time that we have done everything to maintain the honor, integrity, self-determination rights, and values of Tigray, it won't be over. So as we speak, there is fighting going on in many parts of Tigray, and enemy forces are sustaining heavy casualties, both in terms of material and in terms of loss of lives. But the people who are now presiding over this conflict are not in any way interested in the protection of civilian lives, the protection of their own soldiers. Of course, the days, the killing of tens of thousands of Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers is just a footnote in their political lexicon, as it were.
I know it will be very difficult to have an audit of the cost of the war, as the war is still raging. but give us a sense of the gains and losses on the belligerent sides.
Well, I'm not going to say much about this. One thing is, it's been well over a month now since, since open hostilities began. And our forces have been inflicting thousands of casualties on a daily basis. There are divisions who have been absolutely decimated, both from Eritrea's side. Now, it is Eritrea's war now. It's not even Abiy's war. Abiy would have felt content with his forces entering Magana. But even if Abiy felt content with that, I don't think Isaias would let him get away with it. He is more interested in settling all scores with TPLF and the people of Tigray. So we've been inflicting damage after damage. The last couple days alone, more than a dozen tanks have either been destroyed or captured. More than 3 batteries of artillery pieces have been destroyed. Thousands of enemy soldiers have been killed or wounded. In fact, scores have been captured. But the leaders who are now in charge of this war are not interested in taking account of the loss of human lives here. To give you an example of how desperate the situation has become for them, they would start press ganging Eritrea's and Ethiopia's youth in their tens of thousands anytime soon. That much I can assure you. And Abiy was saying as much the other day, that he wants more people to join the army, although he said the army hasn't sustained any casualties, which is pure baloney. Look, yesterday's engagement in Garab Sagan area, which is in the outskirts of Magala, saw a sort of refurbished 25th Army Division, which had already been absolutely decimated in Raya, launching an assault against our forces. When all was said and done, when our forces dealt a harsh blow on the 25th Army Division, the number of the dead and the number of the captured is quite staggering. And among the captured, you would find people who belong to the 13th Army Division, the 21st Army Division, the 17th Army Division, which is mostly entrusted with the protection of Addis and its environs in the past. And strangely enough, even security personnel from the Air Force base in Debre Zeit are among the captives, the prisoners of war. Well, what does that tell you? So Abiy is using every man in uniform, woman in uniform as a cannon fodder in this engagement. But war is not something that should be only construed in terms of loss of lives. It's not a game. We are also paying dearly to defend our interests. It's very unfortunate that we're talking in terms of who killed how many, who wounded how many. That's quite unfortunate. But as far as we're concerned, we have enemies who are so implacable that they would not settle for anything less than absolute destruction of Tigray, and we have to do everything in our capacity to defend against that offensive, and we are.
The war has put a lot of strain on the civilian population, which is being displaced and also is blockaded. So what is being done to mitigate the humanitarian crisis?
It's one of the most tragic, one of the most painful experiences I have is to see children, helpless children and women carrying stuff over their head and living towns after towns because of aerial bombardment, because of drone attacks. I saw a drone attack targeting civilian vehicles. I saw thousands of children leaving towns with nothing on them but their small household utensils and all that. Nobody knows where they will end up. Nobody knows where sukkar will come from. But people in Tigray are trying to help each other out. But it's very unfortunate. The number of people who are being displaced, the number of civilians who are getting killed through all kinds of bombardments. It could be artillery bombardment, it could be aerial bombardment, it could be drone attacks and all that. It's quite staggering. It's very unfortunate. And the fact that these people are very much bent on setting the clock back on Tigray's, what little there is of Tigray's success economically, socially, and whatever, is nowhere more evident than in their indiscriminate shutting down of communication. The shutting down of the communication. These people are interested in sending us back to the Stone Age. And there are times when I feel like maybe they are succeeding in that score. And they are causing loss of life, but also the destruction of livelihoods in many parts of the country. So in many parts of Tigray at least. And I don't think other parts of the country are any exception here. Hundreds of thousands are being displaced, and humanitarian corridors are not accessible to anyone. Abiy still continues, despite his protestations that the war is over, he still continues to send divisions after divisions embedded in Eritrea's army. By the way, it's the bulk of the offensives are being waged by Eritrea's army. And in fact, Eritrea's army generals are really being impatient with the quality of People's Army's performance. I don't know why, but for us, both are enemies, and we're fighting to the nail to maintain the honor and integrity of Tigray. So the human cost is very staggering, and it's very unfortunate, and it's very heart-wrenching to even think about protecting the interest of innocent youth and children. And it behooves the international community to really take this crisis seriously, and to take stock of what this duet, Isaias and Abiy, are doing in this region. I don't know what else I can say at this point in time. It's painful. It's really painful.
Getachew Reda, advisor to the president and spokesperson of Tigray's Central Command. Thank you very much for this update.
You're welcome.